People threw pity coins at him every morning. They had no idea that the man in the wheelchair playing his old guitar on the street corner was actually one of Delta Force's most lethal operators. Today, when a child kidnapping unfolded right before his eyes, Michael Rodriguez's true identity would be revealed in the most shocking way possible. Welcome to Untold Legends. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden heroism and deadly precision, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. If you believe that real warriors sometimes hide in the most unexpected places, hit that subscribe button and help us share these powerful tales of courage that deserve to be remembered. But let's rewind to understand how a homeless veteran pushing a guitar case became the most dangerous person on that street corner when it mattered most. Because Michael Thompson's story begins not with heroism, but with a tragedy so devastating it nearly destroyed his will to live. Every morning at 7:30 a.m., Michael Steele Rodriguez wheeled his chair to the same spot outside the downtown bank. Same corner, same time, the same routine that hadn't changed in 3 years. He'd open his weathered guitar case, toss in a few coins to get started, and begin playing. The morning commuters looked at him with a mixture of pity and discomfort. Most hurried past as if he were invisible. Some awkwardly dropped their spare change into his guitar case. No one made eye contact. No one spoke to him. "Poor man," whispered a woman to her friend as they passed. "It's so sad to see someone his age living on the streets." "I wish the government could do more for these people," her friend replied, but neither stopped walking. Michael heard every word. Every day brought similar comments, similar looks, similar expressions of pity. What they didn't know was that Michael was there by choice. The wheelchair was real. The loss of his legs was real. But the decision to play music on that corner wasn't about survival. It was about escape. But what these people passing by could never imagine was that just 3 years earlier, this same man had been responsible for eliminating some of the world's most dangerous terrorists. And the story of how he ended up here? That's where this tale gets truly unbelievable. Because Michael Rodriguez wasn't just any veteran. For 15 years, he had served as a Delta Force operator in the world's most dangerous places. From Afghanistan to Iraq, Syria to the darkest corners of Africa, the man known by the code name Steele had 47 confirmed kills, and every single one was necessary to make the world a safer place. His teammates called him Steele, not because he was unfeeling, but because under pressure, he became absolutely unbreakable. While other operators might hesitate or second-guess, Michael moved with mechanical precision. When bullets started flying, Steele became the calm at the center of the storm. But 3 years ago in Syria, everything changed in a single night. What happened that night was so classified that even now, most of the details remain buried in government files. But what I can tell you will explain why America's most elite warrior ended up playing guitar for spare change. Michael's team had been tasked with capturing Rashid al-Masri, ISIS's top chemical weapons expert. Intelligence suggested that al-Masri was developing a biological agent capable of killing thousands. The mission was critical: capture him alive for interrogation, prevent a potential catastrophe. The operation had been planned with surgical precision, every detail calculated, every contingency covered. Michael and his 3 teammates, Jackson, Rodriguez, and Miller, were the best of the best. They'd executed dozens of similar missions without a single failure. Until that night, when everything went wrong. The building where al-Masri was supposedly hiding looked exactly as described in their briefings. 2-story concrete structure, minimal security, perfect for a quick extraction. Michael and his team approached through the cover of darkness, using night vision and stealth tactics they'd perfected over years of operations. They breached the building at exactly 0300 hours. The first floor was empty, just as intelligence had predicted. Michael signaled his team to advance to the second floor where their target was reportedly sleeping. That's when they walked into the trap. The next 60 seconds would haunt Michael for the rest of his life. And what happened during those 60 seconds explains why he couldn't bear to be called a hero anymore. "Ambush!" Jackson screamed as automatic weapons fire erupted from 3 different directions simultaneously. The intelligence had been wrong or deliberately falsified. Instead of finding al-Masri with minimal security, they'd walked into a killing field with over 20 militants waiting for them. Michael dove behind a concrete barrier as AK-47 rounds chewed up the walls around him. His training kicked in instantly. Assess, adapt, survive. But even as he returned fire, he could see they were outnumbered 5-1, with no cover and no escape route. Rodriguez went down first, a sniper's bullet catching him in the chest. Miller was hit seconds later, trying to reach Rodriguez's position. Jackson, their team leader, was pinned behind a stairwell, bleeding from shrapnel wounds. "Steal!" Jackson shouted over the gunfire. "We need to extract, now!" But Michael couldn't leave his teammates. It went against everything he'd been trained to believe, everything he'd sworn when he joined Delta Force. No man left behind, ever. He made a decision that would save his teammates' lives and cost him everything. Michael laid down covering fire and sprinted across the open space to reach Rodriguez and Miller. Bullets sparked off the concrete around him as he dragged first Rodriguez, then Miller toward the extraction point Jackson had identified, a window that led to a neighboring building's roof. He got Rodriguez out. He got Miller out. He was going back for Jackson when the explosion hit. The militants had rigged the building with enough explosives to bring down half the structure. And Michael was directly underneath when they detonated it. The blast threw him against a concrete wall with enough force to shatter every bone in his legs. A massive concrete beam pinned him to the ground, crushing everything from his knees down. The pain was so intense that he briefly lost consciousness. When he came to, the building was collapsing around him. He could hear Jackson calling his name, but he couldn't move, couldn't feel his legs. Blood loss was making him dizzy, but he was still alive. His teammates were alive too, because of his actions. The extraction team found them 6 hours later. Rodriguez and Miller would recover fully. Jackson would walk with a limp, but return to active duty. Michael would never walk again, but losing his legs wasn't the worst part. What destroyed Michael wasn't the physical trauma. It was what the military told him afterwards. The doctors amputated both legs at the knee. The physical recovery took 8 months. The psychological recovery? That was still ongoing 3 years later. When Michael was discharged from the hospital, he found himself in a completely different world. In the military, he'd been a hero. In civilian life, he was just a disabled veteran. The government provided him with a generous disability pension. He could have lived comfortably. But comfortable wasn't what he wanted. The guilt was eating him alive. Why had he survived when so many others didn't? Why couldn't he save everyone? These questions tormented him. Alcohol didn't help. Therapy didn't help. The only time he felt any peace was when he played music. So he took to the streets, left the comfort of his government-provided apartment, and came to the heart of the city. Here, surrounded by people's pity, he could forget his own pain. Their sadness reflected his internal anguish. Strangely, being overlooked brought him comfort. But this morning would be different. This morning, everything Michael had tried to bury would come flooding back in the most dramatic way possible. Michael was tuning his guitar when he noticed a black minivan parked across the street. The windows were tinted, the engine was running, but no one was getting out. Michael's 15 years of combat experience triggered every alarm bell in his head. Surveillance vehicle. He continued playing, but his eyes never left the van. 20 minutes later, a woman and her 8-year-old daughter walked past the bank, hurrying toward the elementary school down the street. The woman was clearly running late, trying to get her daughter to school on time. "Mom, why are we rushing so much?" the little girl asked. "We're late, sweetheart. Your teacher is probably wondering where you are," the mother replied. Michael watched them and noticed the black van slowly beginning to move. The van was following the mother and daughter. Michael's heart rate spiked. 15 years of experience recognized this scenario immediately. Potential kidnapping in progress. The van stopped 50 meters ahead of the woman and child. Two men got out. One short and stocky, the other tall and lean. Both moved with the kind of precision that suggested professional training. They weren't random criminals, they were professionals. What happened next would prove that you can take the soldier out of Delta Force, but you can never take Delta Force out of the soldier. Michael dropped his guitar and wheeled toward them as fast as he could. He needed to reach Sarah and Emma before the men could act, but the wheelchair was too slow and the men were accelerating their approach. "Sarah!" Michael shouted. The woman turned and saw him, the disabled musician from the corner. At that moment, the two men closed in on Sarah and Emma. The tall one approached Sarah while the short one grabbed Emma's arm. "Help us!" Sarah screamed, but the street was still relatively empty at this hour. Michael was racing toward them as fast as his wheelchair would allow. The tall man pulled out a gun and pointed it at Sarah. "Don't scream," he said in a low voice. "Take the kid and get her to the car." When Michael was 10 meters away, everything changed. He was no longer Michael, the street musician. This was Steele, the Delta Force operator. "Drop the weapon," Michael commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 15 years of combat leadership. The tall man turned and saw the man in the wheelchair. He laughed. "What are you going to do, old man? Sing us a song?" That was his final mistake. What these kidnappers were about to learn was that Michael had spent 3 years transforming his upper body into a weapon. His legs might be gone, but his arms and torso had become more powerful than they'd ever been. Michael launched himself from the wheelchair with such explosive force that the tall man couldn't comprehend what was happening. Michael's upper body strength, developed through 4 hours of daily training for 3 years, was devastating. His legs might be gone, but his arms and core were weapons of precision. Michael grabbed the tall man's gun, twisted it upward, and simultaneously delivered a headbutt that dropped the man instantly. Then, moving with fluid grace along the ground, he caught the short man's legs in a grappling hold and brought him down hard. 18 seconds later, both kidnappers were unconscious on the sidewalk. Sarah and Emma were free. "Call 911, Michael said, breathing heavily. "Tell them Michael Rodriguez, former Delta Force operator. These men are professional kidnappers." Sarah stared at him in shock. You're Delta Force?" Michael pulled himself back into his wheelchair. "I was. Now I'm just someone who plays music." But this wasn't just a random kidnapping attempt. What the FBI discovered about these men would shock everyone and change Michael's life forever. Police arrived 4 minutes later. FBI arrived 20 minutes after that. When they verified Michael's identity, everything changed. This wasn't just a random kidnapping attempt. These men were part of an organized group that had been targeting children of high-profile families. Emma's father was the CEO of a major technology company. "We've had 4 child kidnappings in this city over the past 6 months, FBI Special Agent Lisa Chin told Michael. "All of them were connected to this group. You just captured 2 of their ringleaders." Michael nodded. "I got lucky." "That wasn't luck," Chin said. "That was training, experience, heroism." That evening, local news ran Michael's story. Headlines read, "Hero in a wheelchair." But Michael didn't want this attention. He didn't want to be visible again. But sometimes, the universe has different plans for heroes who try to hide. The next morning, Michael went to his usual corner, but this time was different. People looked at him differently. Instead of pity, there was respect. Several people approached him to talk. "Sir," said a young man, "I'm ex-army. I saw what you did. I'm proud of you." "Thank you," Michael said. For the first time in years, he genuinely smiled. That day, Sarah and Emma came to visit too. Emma put her allowance money in Michael's guitar case. "This isn't for music," the little girl said. "This is for thank you." Sarah spoke too. "You saved our lives. What can we do for you?" Michael thought about it. For 3 years, he'd been running from his past. But maybe his past wasn't something to run from. Maybe it was something to be proud of. "We could do something for veterans," he said. "A lot of former soldiers are lost like I was. Maybe we can help them." And that's when Michael realized that true heroism isn't about the battles you win. It's about the people you choose to protect. 6 months later, Michael, Sarah, and a group of volunteers founded Heroes in Shadows, a nonprofit organization providing music therapy and community integration support for veterans struggling with PTSD. Michael still played music on the same corner every morning. But now, it wasn't for money. It was for awareness. People didn't pity him anymore. They talked to him, listened to his story, shared their own connections to veterans. And sometimes, very rarely, Michael's sharp eyes would spot a potential threat. A suspicious man following a woman, a stranger getting too close to a child, someone trying to scam an elderly person. In those moments, Michael would act. He wasn't hiding anymore. They started calling him the guardian angel in the wheelchair. Michael liked that nickname because he finally understood that real strength isn't about what you've lost. It's about what you still have to give. A year later, Michael was at Emma's 9th birthday party. He'd become like family to them. Emma called him Uncle Mike. "Uncle Mike," Emma said that day, "you're a real superhero." Michael smiled. "No, sweetheart, I'm just someone who was in the right place at the right time." "But isn't that what superheroes do?" Emma asked. "Don't they just show up at the right place at the right time?" Michael thought about it. Maybe the little girl was right. Maybe being a superhero wasn't about costumes and powers. Maybe it was just about being there when people needed you most. And that's when Michael understood the most important truth of all. Real heroes never truly retire. They just change uniforms. That night at home, Michael took out his Delta Force medals and looked at them. For years, he'd hidden them because he didn't think he deserved them. But now, he understood. These medals weren't given for his past. They were given to create his future, to make him the Michael he was today. The next morning, when Michael wheeled to his corner, he felt different. He was no longer someone running from his past. He was someone using his past to build a future. And as he played his guitar, Michael knew that every time he spotted someone watching the street, that person no longer saw just a disabled musician. They saw someone who would protect the innocent people who needed protecting. Because real heroes never retire. They just wear different uniforms. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Michael? Someone whose appearance made you underestimate their true strength? Share your story in the comments. Because at Untold Legends, we believe that real heroes don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they wait quietly until the moment when ordinary people need extraordinary intervention. If this story inspired you to look twice at the people society overlooks, hit that like button and help us reach others who need to remember that extraordinary people often hide in the most ordinary circumstances. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell for more stories about warriors who never stopped serving, even when their service went unrecognized. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of sacrifice, redemption, and the courage that emerges when someone remembers who they really are. Thank you for watching. And remember, the most dangerous person in the room might be the one nobody notices, quietly protecting everyone around them without asking for recognition or praise.